In this video, we are going to take a look at the Data Hub in Football Manager 2024, and we're going to look at different ways to navigate the Data Hub and look at different things that you can implement in your save to help make your team better. And to be honest, the Data Hub is something that I had never really used up until this version of Football Manager. When I started playing FM, I don't even think they had the Data Hub at that point. I think it was implemented at some point along my FM journey. So I was just so used to playing the game without the Data Hub that I never really got into it until this year. However, I have found the Data Hub to be a really good tool for me in my saves. So I want to talk about the different ways that I use the Data Hub in the hopes that it will help you all in your saves as well. And I want to note with this, I wouldn't use the Data Hub as the end all be all for making decisions about your team and your save. In the end, I think the Data Hub is an excellent tool, but always trust your eyes. Always trust what you're seeing in the game, in your players' attributes, and in the match engine. But what I think that a good purpose for the Data Hub is if you're seeing something in the match engine, you can go to the Data Hub and you can look at this and say, okay, this is confirming what I think I'm seeing. Or you can say, you know what, the data is a little bit different. I'm not necessarily going to immediately react on what I think I'm seeing. I'm going to take a closer look at things. So I think the Data Hub is a really good tool for you to use to kind of figure out how you're approaching and what you're seeing in the game, but I wouldn't make it the end all be all. So let's get stuck into the different ways that I navigate using the Data Hub. So of course, you can access the Data Hub by going to the left side of your screen and clicking Data Hub. And when you get to the Data Hub, it's going to look something like this. And this initial screen is a really good overview of just how your team is doing in your league. Of course, here we have our general performance, and this is just an overview of how your team is doing in different categories compared to the rest of the teams in your league. So the average is this little box in here, and everything else is how your team is doing. So if your team is above average, we're going to see a bigger box here, just like the attribute map for players. And if it's doing worse, it would be a little bit smaller. So in pretty much all of these categories, my Southampton squad is doing pretty well. We're averaging a high number of goals per game, high number of non-penalty XG per game. We're not conceding a lot of goals, and we're not expecting to concede a lot of goals. We're getting a lot of shots off. Shot percentage accuracy could be a little bit better. Passing completion could be a little bit better. And maybe the tackling could be a little bit better. But, those are all ratios. Overall, the team is doing pretty well. This is confirming what I'm seeing in the match engine. I feel like my team is doing well, and I'm seeing that here. But we can go much deeper than this, and this is what I'm going to explore. So the next thing I want to talk about is how we go a little bit deeper. And the first really great tool that I think you can use, which is something that I'm sure you've seen in other YouTube videos, is the XG table. So how do you get the XG table? Go to reports and visuals and you can go to ask for and just type in XG table. And you will be able to see the XG table for your league. You get your XG, this is your expected number of goals. Your XGA, this is your expected number of goals allowed or expected number of goals conceded. And you have your expected points total, so where you should be in the table. There is a lot of information here that I think is really good. This is really especially good, I think, if you're just trying to figure out a general overview of, is my team good enough? And are my tactics working? So over in my Mendiola save, there are only 7 teams in the league, but we were actually sitting in 5th at one point in the league. And I was looking and I was watching the games thinking, I feel like we should be higher in the league. I feel like we're playing well, but we're just so far down in the table. So one of the things I did is I went to this XG table and I looked to see how we were doing. What was our expected points? What were our expected goals? What was our expected goals allowed? We were allowing significantly more goals than we should have been. We were scoring a lot less goals than we should have been. And based on our expected points total, we were actually supposed to be tied for first or in second, but we were sitting in fifth. So what did that tell me? That told me the tactics are working. Maybe my team's not so good, but the tactics are working, the style of play is working. So rather than change things, I stuck with my tactic, I stuck with what I was doing, and sure enough, things eventually balanced out. Things will always balance out in football managers. And heck, we ended up winning the league on our final match day. So the XG table is a really great tool because you can look at the XG table and just get a general sense of how is my team really doing? Should we be scoring more goals? Should we be allowing less goals? And where should we be in the table? So if you're a team that's not doing well and you're further down in the table than you should be, but you're looking at your expected points total and thinking, this says I should be a lot higher. Maybe you can just wait things out. But on the flip side, if you're higher up in the table and your expected points total is a lot lower, or you're lower in the table and that's exactly where you should be, all right, now we need to look at maybe changing some things or maybe looking at improving the quality of the squad to get to where we want to go. So that's the XG table. This is the first, I think, really great tool that we can use. Now let's talk about the different phases of the game. And I think the Data Hub does a pretty good job of giving us information about how our team is doing in the different phases of the game. So, what are the different phases of the game? We have attacking, we have defending, and we have dead ball situations or set pieces. Now, if this were real life, we'd also include transition. But as far as when I'm using the Data Hub, I don't think we have a whole lot of information on how we transition. So for the purpose of this, we're going to look at attacking, we're going to look at defending, and we're going to look at set pieces. So let's start off with attacking. So generically, if we want information about how we're doing an attack, let's just look up attacking. And we get a lot of information here that I really like. So generally, let's start off with team attacking. So this gives us just information on how our team is doing compared to the rest of the league attacking. Are we creating a lot of goals? Are we creating a high number of expected goals? Then are we scoring a lot of goals? And then we have different things to look at, what are the different things about attacking that maybe we're good or bad at? Are we giving the ball away a lot? Let's look at the pass completion ratio. Are we not doing very well on crosses? What does our cross completion ratio look like? This is something else I can tell you about tactic. We're looking at dribbles per game. Let's say you have a team with a lot of good dribbles, but your dribbles per game is really low. Maybe we need to change the tactic to take advantage of that. On the flip side, you might have a lot of dribbles per game, but your team doesn't have players with high pace or high dribbling. Maybe we should look more for a passing tactic. So things like that. Are you getting a lot of shots off? How is your players? Are they able to get those shots on target and score? All of these things provide a lot of information here to see how your tactic is doing. And in general, if you got everything out here compared to the rest of the league, you're probably doing right. But if things are not so good, if that attribute map is looking really small, maybe there's something about your tactic that isn't working very well. So take a look at the general thing here, and this can help you confirm things you're seeing within the map. The next thing I would really like to look at is the attacking efficiency. And essentially this is your team good at shooting the ball? Can you score? So we have aggressive shooting and wasteful shooting. This is kind of looking at the number of shots per game and are you good at converting shots? There's a couple of things here. If you're in the match engine and you're looking at your shots, but you're like, man, all the shots we're getting are just from outside of the box and we're skying them. So you might have a lot of high shots per game, but you're not scoring a lot of goals. You're going to have a low conversion rate. So you might be somewhere over here. That can tell you something about your tactic. Maybe you need to include something like work the ball into the box, or maybe you need to have a little bit of lower tempo so that you're working the ball closer and getting better opportunities. The other thing is, if you're looking at your tactic thinking, man, we're getting a lot of shots off, but we're not scoring a lot of goals, right? So if you, on that flip side, you're still going to be in the same area, but maybe that's now telling you something about your players. Maybe your strikers don't have good finishing. Maybe your forward players don't have good finishing, or they have poor composure, or something along those lines. So you're creating chances, but you're not scoring. That can tell you something about the quality of the players. Looking at something like this can help confirm that for you. Take a look at this graph and say, all right, how is my team doing compared to the rest of the league? And from there, you have enough information to decide, all right, we're getting a lot of shots off, but yeah, we're wasteful because we're taking long shots. I need to work the ball into the box. Or we're getting a lot of chances, but my strikers aren't scoring. I'm seeing that in the data here. I need to go sign a striker who can actually finish. So the next question is, if you feel like you've got someone in a forward position, but you're not totally sure why they're not scoring goals, well, we can again kind of use the data hub to figure that out as well. We can type in goals now, and if we go to scoring for forwards, we have data here looking to see on forwards kind of goal scoring outputs. So on the y-axis here, we have goals per 90 minutes, and on the x-axis here, we have non-penalty goals per 90 minutes. So the non-penalty XG gives us an idea of, are we creating chances for our forwards? And then the goals per 90 minutes is, are they actually putting them away? So if we have someone down here, we have a player here, they're not scoring a whole lot, but they're also probably not scoring a whole lot because they're not getting a high number of expected goals. Same thing over here, but now we have a player who's scoring a little bit more, but they're not getting a lot of chances. So if we get this player a lot more chances, we might see them over here. And now if we have someone in this region, we have a player who's expected to score a lot of goals, but they're not putting away their chances. And then of course here we just have a prolific forward. So depending on where they are here, you can get some insight into how is my forward player really doing. And if you're in the match engine and you're watching games, and if you're looking at a forward thinking, man, they get a lot of chances, but I just feel like they're not scoring, then, we can look at this data here and we can confirm that. And if you have someone that's the case, maybe they don't have good finishing or good composure, so we can train finishing or composure. Or maybe you just need to sign a striker of a similar mold with better finishing. So this can give you some insight of, do I need to sign a new player? Or am I kind of trusting my eyes here and they're going to come good? So based on the data here, we can decide, do we need to sign a new forward? Do we need to adjust our tactic? There's a lot of information here that can be good for your attacking output. So I'm going to leave it there as far as the attacking is concerned, but I do want to note this is just scratching the surface on the attacking data that you have. You can get data on movement and dribbling. You can get other data on goals and goals outputs and scoring just from midfielders. And you can get passing data. You can get shot map data. There is so much information here that you can use to your advantage. And granted, a lot of this is because I have pretty good analysis. I have a good analysis team. So maybe if you're a lower team, you won't have as much, which is why I've tried to keep it fairly basic. But again, there's a lot of data here. And the important thing is if you have a question in mind, or if you're seeing something in the match engine, look for it. Look for what you're questioning, or just find data that you're comfortable working with, and you can use that to help you out in your game. But that is stuff for attacking. Let's get into the defending side of things. So taking a look at defending, we do have our overall defending statistics. This is similar to the overall attacking statistics, and this gives just a general overview, similar to an attribute map, of what your team looks like defending. How many goals are you conceded a game? What's the expected goals? Are your shutouts, tackles won ratio, possession won, etc. And a lot of these things will depend on what you have in your tactic and what you're looking for. So I wouldn't necessarily always trust this overall. Definitely look at the expected goals against per game and shutouts and things like that. But tackles won ratio and fouls made per game will be dependent on things on like getting stuck in. And, are your players going in and tackling hard? If they're tackling hard, they will win more tackles, but obviously they'll also allow more fouls and things like that. The other thing is, and the thing that I kind of like to look at is possessions won. I like to have a high possessions won, but I'm also employing a high pressing tactic. So we're trying to win possession back more often. If you have a lower line tactic, maybe you won't see as high. So a lot of this is dependent on your tactic. I don't always look at this team defending screen, but is something good to have in your data hub arsenal. Another good tab is this defensive efficiency tab. Essentially, how much are you defending and what is the opposition conversion rate? If you have something called a quiet defense here, that means essentially that you're not facing a whole lot of shots per game. I think that generally teams with more possession will have a quiet defense, but if you're seeing a lot of possession and for some reason if you notice you're allowing a lot of counterattacks and a lot of chances in game, this is a good place to look at. Opposition conversion rate means that they're converting a lot of their shots. This could suggest that even though you're not facing a lot of shots, maybe they're facing a lot of high XG shots. So take a look at this. This is another good way to look at potentially adjusting your tactic. If you have a really high line, but you're allowing, a really high conversion rate, maybe you want to drop it just a little bit and things like that. There's also this defending screen here. I actually don't like this defending screen, but I think it's in almost every data hub. So I'll talk about it just a little bit, but essentially blocks per game and clearances per game. This is really going to be affected by, do you have a lot of possession? If you have less possession, you're going to be up here. If you have more possession, you're going to be down here. I think this is a better indicator of how your team does in possession, because if you have the ball more often, you're going to have less blocks per game and less clearances per game. But my favorite thing to look at in the defending data hub is the tackling for defenders. Because this is, well, two things. One is the tackling for defenders. And I think this is fantastic because you can see in your team who is actually pretty good at tackling. We can see here, fortunately, most of my players are on this side of things, so they're winning a lot of their tackles. I'm less worried about the total number of tackles attempted, because again, if you're a very possession-based side, your team just isn't going to tackle as much in general, just because you have the ball more often. They don't need to tackle as much. But I really like looking at the tackles one ratio percentage, because if you have a team with better tackling, they're going to be on this side of things and win tackles more often. If they're on this side of things, maybe I need to look at signing defenders with better tackling. So I think this is a really great screen. I think this is a great scene for especially your fullbacks or wingbacks, because they're in those one-on-one positions a lot where they need to tackle players who are actually dribbling at them, and they're in situations where they can win the ball back more often and look to counter. And the other one that I absolutely love for defenders is aerial defenders. So this is looking at to see, do I have players who are actually winning headers? This is especially good, I think, in the lower leagues. As you get up, I mean, you still want players who are winning, but maybe you're looking more at a ball playing defender. But especially in the lower leagues, I think aerial defenders is absolutely crucial, especially as you are playing teams that are floating in crosses more and playing a more route one style. So you can see here, are most of your defenders winning their headers? Again, I look at this headers one ratio percentage. Unfortunately for me, looks like Jan Bednarik where actually is Jan Bednarik? He's all right as far as winning headers are concerned. Jack Stevens is pretty good. So I have a lot of players who are sort of in the middle. This is something that I might want to change in the offseason by getting players with higher jumping reach or higher strength. So if you're looking at your team and you're noticing I have players with not such good jumping reach, or I don't have very strong players, and you're worried about your aerial ability, this is something that's good to look at to see how are my players actually doing compared to the rest of the league. So that's what I like to look at in defending for the data hub. But again, there is so much information in the data hub here. You have all the team stuff, you have defensive actions. You can just look at your defenders and look at their attacking movement. Are they providing assists? How are they doing in possession? There's a lot of information here that, again, depends on the type of questions you want to answer or what you're seeing in the match engine. I'm just showing you guys things here that I think are helpful, but of course, find the tools that you find helpful and find the tools that you are trying to use to answer the defensive questions that you have from watching the match engine. And the last thing I want to talk about is set pieces. And set pieces are where I think the data hub becomes exceptionally useful. Well, especially with the new set piece tactic creator, I think Data Hub is an awesome way to make the most of your set pieces. So let's take a look at it. So let's talk about attacking set pieces first. So the first part here is set piece attacking efficiency for individual players. So what does this mean? We are looking to see essentially who are our best set piece takers. So we also know that we have the kind of set piece attribute in game, but let's see if this set piece attribute is actually working and are our set pieces working. So if we're seeing players here, if your set piece takers here have a lot of crosses per game, this means you're winning a lot of set pieces, probably have more possession, and a high amount of expected assists per game. All right, it means that it's probably working. So this means they're getting the ball into the box, and we're expecting players to score from their delivery. So not only does this mean that the delivery is good, but it means the runs are good. So what are we kind of looking for here? If we see a lot of players over in this area here, so this means we're getting a lot of set pieces and we're delivering in good set pieces, and we probably have a good set piece routine. If we're not scoring off of those set pieces, all right, maybe I just need players with better heading or better jumping reach because we're getting the ball into the box and we're expected to score. We're just not scoring. On the flip side, if you're not getting a lot of crosses, you're not winning a lot of set pieces, and that also would mean that you're not expected to score from your set pieces, then maybe we need to fix that set piece tactic. If we're over here, set piece tactic is good, but maybe we need to play for set pieces or something like that on. And if we're over here, down here somewhere, this means that we are getting a lot of set pieces, but maybe our set piece tactic isn't good or our deliverers aren't very good. And maybe that's the case. You need to sign players with a better set piece taking efficiency. So this is kind of how to read the set piece taking efficiency. I think this is a great screen here. This tells me a lot about how my set piece tactics are doing, and this tells me a lot about how my set piece takers are doing. So I think this is a great screen. They also have a team version of this, which I don't use as often, but you can also look at this just for your team in general. Again, we're pretty high up here, so we're winning a lot of set pieces. We have a good set piece tactic. We have good set piece takers, so we're expected to score a lot of goals. If you're down here, it's the opposite, and same thing here. You're not getting a lot of set pieces, but you're expected to score from them, and this is the opposite. You're getting a lot of set pieces, but your set piece tactic might not be very good. So this can tell you a lot about how your set piece tactic is doing, or maybe even your set piece coach. So if you're somewhere here or here, maybe you need to look at, trying to win more set pieces, which will naturally occur as you have more possession. If you're over here, take a look at your set piece coach. Maybe looking at like attacking set pieces as that pre-match focus. Train your set pieces, and if none of that works, maybe develop a new set piece tactic. And now let's say that you're in that area where you're winning a lot of set pieces, but you're not scoring. You're not expected to score from a lot of those set pieces. Next, let's go to this screen here, set piece first contacts opposition box. Now for this is always going to be red. You're always going to win less headers from the opposition box. But this is a great screen to look at and decide, okay, how do I want to redesign my set piece tactic? Do I want a near post corner or a central corner? Or do I want a far post corner? This tells you where you're winning the ball. If I deliver it to the near post, I'm winning headers 18% of the time. Centrally, I'm winning it 16% of the time. Far post, I'm winning it 20% of the time. So my set piece tactic right now, I'm happy with. But if I wanted to redesign my set piece tactic and I was looking at this, I might say that I want more far post set piece deliveries compared to near post. Or if I'm looking at the match engine and thinking, man, my far post set piece tactic is scoring way more often than my near post set piece tactic. All right, let's see. Let's go to the data hub and see where are we actually winning most of these headers. So in this case, I can see the far post tactic seems to be working slightly better than the near post or the central one. So if I'm going to my set piece tactics, and let's actually go to it right now to see how this might be implemented. So when I go here, I have two tactics. I have a near post tactic and I have a far post tactic. So if I think my far post tactic is working much more often than my near post tactic, I can go to modify my routine frequencies. And right now, I do have it coming more often in the near post. But let's say that I was looking at that and thinking, I think my far post tactic is better. I might move this to average and move that to more often. And then I can look and see, all right, is the far post tactic working better? Are we still winning the same number of headers? And we can use that to decide how often we want near post, how often we want far post, or if we just want to go one or the other. So this is how I would implement that information from the data hub. And then looking at defensive set pieces, we have a lot of the same stuff. How often are we allowing set pieces, and how often are we allowing goals from those set pieces? So we can see here, pretty much, oh no, I'm over here. I thought it was in the middle there. So we're a little bit over here. So we're not allowing a whole lot of set pieces, but when we do defend them, we're not great. That is actually something that I saw in the match engine. So I'm not surprised to see this. We're fairly average in defending set pieces, but fortunately we don't allow a whole lot of set pieces. So this is something that I actually was seeing in the match engine, and I actually hadn't looked at this, so this is interesting to see. So that being said, we can use this to adjust our tactic or adjust our set pieces, adjust our set pieces. So if I'm looking at this and I'm like, maybe you're a real possession-based team, and I'm looking at them like, yeah, we're not allowing a whole lot of set pieces, but the set piece tactic isn't good, or maybe you don't have players with high jumping reach and strength, so you might be over here. So if I'm looking at that, I'm saying, I either need to adjust my set piece tactic, or maybe I need just to sign a player with good jumping reach. And then you have that information there, and then you can go to those first contacts in your own box. And this is always going to be green just because people tend to win more. But now you can actually look at your set piece tactic. If you were in that area where your set piece tactic wasn't very good, defensive tactic was allowing a lot of expected goals, look here. Where is it weak? For me, I'm very strong in the middle, and I'm very strong at the back post. And this makes sense because I put my players of 20 jumping reach there. And sure enough, I was tended to allow more um, goals from the front post. Like this, that's where most of goals off of corners and things were coming from. So I'm looking at this and thinking, maybe I should adjust my set piece tactic. I need to bring maybe one of these players to the front post so that, one of my better jumping reach players over here so that we can be winning balls from there more often. So this is how you can look at it and look at how to adjust your set piece tactic. This is a good option for looking at defensive set pieces and seeing, all right, where am I winning it most often? Where am I not winning it most often? And you can adjust where you put your players based on that. So overall, I think that's a pretty comprehensive look at the data hub. Now for this, I do an advanced analysis, and the reason that I have advanced analysis here is because we look at the information. I do have like 3 performance analysts and a head performance analyst. And my Mendiola save, I don't think I have maybe I have 1 performance analyst. You might not necessarily get all of this data, or if you do, it might not be like as in depth per se. But the data hub is still useful. At the very least, you'll pretty much always have the XG table. You'll always have the expected amount of goals, expected goals allowed, and expected points. So if there's anything you use from it, it's probably that, because that gives you just a good overview of, hey, this is how my team is going. But I really like some of the attacking, defending, and set piece statistics. I think the set piece statistics in particular is really strong in the data hub. So you can use that information. And again, always trust your eyes. Always trust what you're seeing during matches and what your players are looking like. But if you're unsure of something or you want confirmation on what you're seeing, the Data Hub is a fantastic tool, a tool that I have found myself using more and more in FM24 after really having never used it. This is a great tool. Complicated, there's a lot of stuff here, but overall it's really great. So I hope that this video has helped give you strategies for how to use the Data Hub and help you to be able to navigate what the Data Hub looks like. And hopefully this will help you all to do absolutely amazing in your save. So again, I hope you found this video helpful. Hope everyone is having a wonderful week. I will see you all next time. Bye.